Hello and welcome to Ion Society. You're very welcome. This is our first show. So the basics of this show is going to be looking at issues in our society, big events, what's happening around the world, and why we should actually care. So I will be joined by a panel every month while we discuss these issues. So welcome. I see Basic Trigonometry, King Crew, Tusk, and of course Faux Hammer was the first in the chat. Yeah, so just really quickly, I do want to introduce, I know we won't be talking much on this stream, but my producer will be Tattie-bogle. How are you, sir?
All right, troops, all right. Oh, I'm doing no three bad at all.
Yeah, he doesn't want to speak.
I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be saying that much at this point in time. I'm getting myself back into this old saddle and familiarising myself with tickling some buttons.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm very happy. I'm very happy to have you producing today's show. And I will introduce the guests of the panel after the introductory video. So every month we will have an introduction into the topic. So guys, enjoy. Also known as Burma, is in Southeast Asia. It's Thailand, Laos, Bangladesh, India. It has a population of approximately 54 million, most of whom are Burmese. In the last few weeks, a coup d'etat and constant protests against it. But how did we get here? To give democracy a chance is now to remove that support. To understand the rocky terrain of Burmese society context. Myanmar gained independence from Britain in 1948. During World War II, Burma was conquered by the Japanese Empire. Popular leaders of the Burmese Indian Army, led by Aung San, faced the possibility of a trial for colluding with Japan in its occupation. However, the British establishment had decided that the leaders were too popular to go ahead with this trial. The following few years was met with a series of strikes, splits, and rebellions, in advance of Burmese independence being secured.
My colleagues and I have come to London in response to the invitation of His Majesty's government in order to discuss the constitutional questions of Burma. The demand of our people is complete independence. And before that independence comes, through a constituent assembly elected by the nationals of Burma, we want to have an interim national government with full authority. We want also the peoples of what is called the frontier areas to have the same freedom with us, simultaneously and join hands with us.
Aung San himself was assassinated just 6 months before full independence was made official. Because of this rough start, there was a rift between the political elites and the armed forces. The armed forces believed that they were the only group organised enough to bring the more than 160 groups together under one nation. The saving of Burma came with a heavy price. What would follow is 5 decades of military rule. On March 2nd, 1960, Win seized power in a coup d'etat. Under the Burma Socialist Program Party, Win became the head of state as chairman of the Union Revolutionary Council, and also later Prime Minister. The coup was characterised as bloodless by the world's media. This is largely due to power that had already been secured by the military. Declaring that parliamentary democracy was not suitable for Burma, the new regime suspended the 1948 constitution and dissolved the legislature. Ne Win emulated the rule of Mao in China and attempted such isolationist communist tendencies for Burma. From 1988 to 1997, the Burma Socialist Program Party changed its name several times. First to the State Law and Order Restoration Council, although the regime retreated from the totalitarian Burmese way to socialism of the BSPP when it took power in 1988. The regime was widely accused of human rights abuses. This most notably included the brutal repression of student protests, which saw over 3,000 people lose their lives. During this time, the junta changed the name of the country from Burma to Myanmar, and the capital, Rangoon, was renamed Yangon. It rejected the 1990 election results, in which the National League for Democracy Party won in a landslide. The military kept Aung San Suu Kyi, leader of the NLD and daughter of Aung San, under house arrest until her release on the 13th of November 2010. It was her relentless fight for democracy that awarded her the Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. In 1997, the State Law and Order Restoration Council was abolished and reconstituted as the State Peace and Development Council. The powerful regional military commanders who were members of the Law and Order Council were then promoted to new positions and transferred to the capital. The junta wielded more power than the cabinet ministers, officers or civilians. The Expense Ministry portfolio, which was in the hands on the 15th of September 1990 Solidarity and Development Association, which was replaced by the Union Solidarity and Development Party in March 2010 for fresh elections. In 2008, the SPDC announced a new constitution as part of its Roadmap to Democracy programme. Contained in this constitution was the requirement for 25% of the seats to be filled by the military. An election law was enacted in order to exclude ex-prisoners from becoming members of registered political parties. The National League for Democracy boycotted the 2010 elections. If they decided to register, it would have had to expel half of its leading members, all of whom were imprisoned at some point. But in November, the military erased the clause in a parliamentary section. After the amendments, NLD leaders unanimously decided to register for the by-elections the following year. Amidst heavy restrictions and voter suppression, the people were determined to make their support known for the NLD, and the military were forced to accept this astounding win. 2015 was the first actual free and fair election in Burma, with NLD winning once again, this time in a landslide of 78%. Due to Suu Kyi having children with a different nationality, she was unable to become president. The role of state councillor was created for her instead. Since 2012, Myanmar has witnessed a massive shift in political and economic freedoms. Increases in wages, relaxed press and internet censorship laws, rights for workers to unionise, anti-corruption and better tax laws are included in these reforms, although most of these freedoms fall well below international standards. Freedom, however, didn't reach everyone. The main religion in Myanmar is Buddhism. There are many ethnic groups in the country, most of whom are recognised. During the fight for independence, Rohingya Muslims were one of the few groups not to be awarded protected status. The law established 3 levels of citizenship. The most basic level, naturalisation, required proof of family living in Myanmar prior to 1948. The Rohingya generally lacked such documents, so their families were initially denied citizenship. From the 3 levels of citizenship that the law has, the Rohingya people can apply to 2, but it is generally difficult for them to attain any sort of citizenship. Since 2012, there have been a series of attacks on Rohingya Muslims and Hindi. These attacks turned into massacres by 2015, with shallow graves being found on the borders. Since the crackdown on these communities, the figure of Rohingya refugees is well over 900,000. Most of these groupings fled to neighbouring Bangladesh for safety. Aung San Suu Kyi has been particularly criticised for her inaction and silence over the issue, and for doing little to prevent military abuse. In 2012, she told reporters that she didn't know if the Rohingya could even be regarded as Burmese citizens. She repeated this sentiment in 2016, refusing to condemn violence against the Rohingya and denied that Muslims in Myanmar had been subject to ethnic cleansing. In December 2019, Suu Kyi appeared in the International Court of Justice at The Hague, where she defended the Burmese military against allegations of genocide.
More than 30 police stations and villages and one military base had been attacked before sunrise in a highly coordinated fashion by an organized armed group operating along a densely forested hill range that provides ample opportunity for hiding. Mr. President, please allow me to clarify the use of the term clearance operation, namely Xinliyi in Myanmar. Its meaning has been distorted. As early as the 1950s, this term has been used during military operations against the Burma Communist Party in Bogle Range. Since then, the military has used this expression in counterinsurgency and counter-terrorism operations after attacks by insurgents or terrorists. Please bear in mind this complex situation and the challenge to sovereignty and security in our country when you are assessing the intent of those who attempted to deal with the rebellion. Surely, under the circumstances, genocidal intent cannot be the only hypothesis.
In a speech of over 3,000 words, Suu Kyi did not use the term Rohingya once in describing the ethnic group. She stated that allegations of genocide were incomplete and misleading. She claimed that the situation was actually a Burmese military response to attack by militia groups. She questioned how there could be genocidal intent when the Burmese government had opened investigations and also encouraged Rohingya to return after being displaced. Not many Rohingya chose to return to Myanmar. Despite international condemnation over the treatment of certain groups in Myanmar, the NLD won the 2020 election by 83%. The military, once again, rejected this result. On February 1st, 2021, the militia made their move. It declared that the results of the 2020 general election was invalid due to fraud, and stated its intent to hold a new election at the end of a one-year state of emergency. The coup d'etat occurred the day before the Parliament of Myanmar was due to sit, swearing in the members elected in the 2020 election, which could have prevented this coup from occurring. The President and Aung San Suu Kyi were both detained, along with their ministers, their deputies, and members of Parliament. They were all back under house arrest. Since the coup started, citizens across the country have come out on the streets in protest against the coup. The internet has now been restricted and even cut off in certain parts of the country. This has not slowed any of the protests. In fact, the protests have now reached tens of thousands, and strikes have started in the public sector. The civil disobedience has been noisy and creative in the face of armoured vehicles and rubber bullets. The latest demand is the complete removal of the military from the Parliament, and for those responsible for the coup to be held accountable. Ms Suu Kyi originally faced 2 charges of illegally importing walkie-talkies and violating Myanmar's natural disaster law. But a further few charges have been added since. She was accused of using illegal communication equipment and causing fear and alarm. With more charges being placed upon the leaders of the elected government weekly, and protests becoming more sustained in strike action, what can the future hold for Myanmar and its people? And what does it teach the rest of the world about the fragility of democracy? And we are back. Thank you so much for sticking by that one. Yes, it is a very serious topic. I see a few people in the chat saying, wow. So yes, that's just an introduction into the historical process of Myanmar. Just to give you a bit of an introduction to the issue. The last 6 weeks have seen absolute upheaval in the country yet again. And joining me to discuss this, we have Vishanti. Hello, Vishanti.
Hello.
Is Vishanti there? Good
Hi.
to see you. And of course, we
you
have
too.
Big Blue, Blue Marble Science. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There is a bit of a lag, so bear with us. Blue, are you there?
Yeah, I'm in here. How about it now?
You see her
Hi,
there.
Blue.
Hello, hello.
I don't know how long this lag is, so this is gonna be fun.
There is a good bit of a lag.
Are we talking
or
like
maybe it's just my
2 seconds? Or are we talking
lack
5?
of connection. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, it's definitely my lack of connection.
I feel like we're gonna have the live satellite delay issue type thing they have on like CNN.
Hold on. Yeah, I'm just gonna refresh this. So give me 1 sec.
Talk amongst yourselves while we try and sort this out, folks. Dee, 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 dee. No, I mean, that's about as far as we're getting with that, otherwise we're going to get copyrighted.
Oye, que
So-
cosa más linda que... I'm gonna sing.
There you go. And she's back. Once again, Tatty will shut up.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So guys, I wanted you to come on just to get your take on what's been happening in Myanmar, but also the kind of the side effects of what this means. You know, the fragility of democracy, as I said, as I left the video. Have you guys any opinions on what's been happening over there, or have you been paying attention?
I mean, I've always got opinions. I can't always say that they're the most informed when it comes to geopolitics, but I've always got opinions.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. Fortunately or unfortunately, as the case may be, I don't really pay very much attention, as much attention as I should. So I think the initial question I had when I read through this was, did that damn place ever have a democracy to begin with? I don't think so.
Yeah, that was one of my questions as well. It looked like from the reading that I did, just the very brief reading that I did, is that for the last, generation or two, it's been a quote government, but it's always been at the behest and the whims of the military. So any tenuous democracy that they seem to have tried is basically, if the military doesn't like it, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a serious flaw in the system that they decided to adopt. I mean, when you mandate 25% of the leaders of the country have to be military people, wait a minute, that's just asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is military. And particularly the defense ministry has always been kept with the leader of the junta. Going right back, the defense has always been kept in the military. And in they did say 25% of the seats.
Oh, it's a big drop out there, man. That's a big drop out. Here in a couple of seconds, see if the goat catches back up. No, I think the goat's giving up the goat or giving up the ghost.
I honestly,
What's
I
it-
don't, I honestly don't know what's happening with my internet today.
Goats are chewing through
It's
the wires,
really,
man.
really, really choppy on my end.
Hmm.
Yeah, my apologies. My apologies. Hang on, I try to sort this out.
In the meantime, I've got a question for Blue and Vishanti, just out of your personal interest. What's the media coverage been like over your end of the pond with regards to this? Has there been a lot,
Well,
none, a
it
passing
was
nod, or what?
it's when the coup first started, it was very in the news cycle for a few days, and we don't hear a whole lot about it anymore. So it was a very quick news cycle.
Yeah, news travels quick, yeah. Well, or gets old quick, I should say. Which is unfortunate. I think it was a bit the same in the UK, to be honest with you. It was in the news cycle a couple of days, and then it was kind of put in the back burner. There's been a couple of documentaries and that on it on the BBC, but other than that, it's not been brought to much public attention.
Okay, I'm hoping.
Yay! I can hear you. Oh, man, she's gone again.
Yeah.
Oh, they're brilliant. The disappearing crafty.
This stream brought to you by the Myanmar military.
Seriously, my internet hates me right now.
That or it's the military. It's gotta be.
Yeah, it's Myanmar. It's Myanmar. I think it's back up running. I hope it's back up running. Otherwise, I'll cry. But you guys won't hear me because my internet sucks. Yeah, no, that's better for me anyway, I think.
You're sounding a lot more clear than you were, so.
That's good. I think it's because everybody is on the internet right now.
Yes.
Okay, so right back to what we were saying.
Yeah, so what we were saying.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Where were we?
Well, before my internet cut out yet again, I was just saying that in the 2008 roadmap to democracy, and it came out of nowhere, actually. They did demand that 25% of the seats would remain in the hands of the military, and that defense post and the military post would always be taken up by the leader of the junta.
What another thing that's been really interesting to kind of try to learn about this situation is that from a Western perspective, we hear military coup and we automatically go, oh, that's bad. But then you look at the person that they kind of more or less deposed, and you're like, oh, wow, they were not a good person. And you're conflicted because it's like, on the one hand, out of the frying pan into the fire, you know? You have a person, a leader who was like, oh, yeah, we can't say for sure if this entirely oppressed minority is going to ever get citizenship. And then on the other hand, you have a military going, we don't like what you're doing. Canceled.
Yeah, and that's why I included both bits, because you can't look at you can't look at the leaders of Myanmar without seeing the Rohingya issue.
Mhm.
And Suu Kyi, to her credit, did stand up in The Hague. She attended. She was actually there in person, giving her account. Does that forgive the fact that nearly 1 million of her citizens have been murdered and displaced? Not really.
Nah.
Having said that, can she be actually blamed? Can the government be blamed when the military at any point in time could pull their support and do what they've done anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose that's the question that we have to ask of even Western democracies. How far is too far? How much are you going to justify before you say, no, I can't justify this anymore?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at the chat there. Yeah, need to feed the goats more during the streams. Tusk says the most worrying thing is that the leaders of the coup are yet to make their intentions or reasons clear, given the country's history in making policy decisions based on superstition. Right. The reason for the coup is very, very clear. The reason is very clear. Back in 2010, when the National League for Democracy refused to take part, their guy was in power. And they actually changed the military into two wings. They split it into two wings. One was a political party that they would assume would win and, you know, gain ultimate power for the military, and to show Western democracies that were trying to force democracy onto Myanmar and other countries of that nature, trying to push them into that democratic way of running things. So they decided, you know, we'll just get a puppet, and the puppet will run, and the puppet will be in charge, but we'll really be in charge. And then the people were like, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We're voting with these. And that's why they actually instituted the restrictions on ex-prisoners not being allowed to run in political parties or join political parties. So then jump forward then to 2020. Again, they thought, oh, well, you know, her fall from grace with the Rohingya stuff will be enough to get our person into power. That didn't work. That really didn't work. In fact, it went from 76% or 74% in the last election up to 83%. Because again, I think the issue was people saw the fighting as part of the military, and Suu Kyi couldn't really say anything, or democracy would be destroyed. So her party actually gained in respect. And so when it comes to the coup right now, what they're hoping is throw these people in prison or house arrest at the moment, which is what they're in, and say they're criminals, and try and make them fall from grace in the public eye. Didn't happen in the 90s. It's not going to happen now. And so that their person that they put up the next time will get into power and give all the power back to the military. That's what they're hoping, or that's what it seems that they're hoping. Yeah, okay, so there is, the timing of this is interesting, because this happened on the 1st of February, and this was a couple of weeks after the storming of the Capitol in the US, where in the run-up to that, to the transfer of power, you saw people thinking that martial law was going to be brought into the US, that there was going to be a coup by Donald Trump. And so it's interesting then to see when the coup actually takes place, this is what it really looks like to lose your rights, because they've lost their right to strike. Not that it stopped them. They've lost their internet privileges. They've lost the right freedom of press, or the freedoms that they had won over the past 10, 15 years. And so it's a big issue when a coup is actually successful. But the coup itself is very clear. The military want to continue control in Myanmar because they don't think democracy serves their purpose. That's the biggest problem.
No, I mean, I agree with that. Everything you said, Kayla. Coups typically are military, right?
Yeah.
Contrast that with the little bit of hand waving and hoopla that went on here in the U.S. and it's laughable to even consider that as a realistic possibility here. Our military doesn't behave that way.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to get your opinion because, to my mind, I don't like the term insurrection. I don't like the term insurrection because I've seen it happen in other places. Real, genuine insurrection. So trigger words, they don't play the same way for me. So I didn't view the storming of the capital, the occupation in the capital, as, now, having seen some of the videos that have come out since, there is a case to be made. But what is your opinion on the comparison between what happened at the capital and what's happened afterwards with these people who broke the law being persecuted or prosecuted, compared with an actual coup?
Well, what happened at our capital is even if you go back to 1967, 1968, when we were going through an awful lot of protest about a lot of different things, and there was a fair amount of sporadic violence here, there, and yonder. But we had students occupying government buildings. We had students occupying college administration buildings. We had all kinds of things like that going on, but never anything approaching a coup. And what happened at the U.S. Capitol was never anything even remotely approaching a coup. You had a handful of people misbehaving, literally. I don't think you can draw any comparison between that and what goes on in a place like Burma.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in Burma is so complicated. I think the charges on Suu Kyi is now up to 5, with a possibility of 10 years in actual prison. That is scary, considering, I mean, you don't have to, and I think you'll agree with this, Blue, you don't have to like an elected government to respect their authority to run.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, Suu Kyi and her party were elected. And that's what's scary about it. Part of my issue looking at Myanmar is just, people think that because we're in the West and we have this big tradition of quote unquote democracy, and I question democracy, by the way, whether or not it can happen in other countries, like this absolute repression can happen in kind of Western countries. And the problem is, it can very easily. Sorry, I'm distracted by the chat.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I wonder if that's really true. Could that really happen? What's going on in Myanmar at the moment? Could that that sort of thing actually happen in the United States? I think the answer to that is it's unthinkable.
Well, yeah, in the US, but I mean, I'm also thinking anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, well,
You look at Hungary in particular, Hungary, Greece, and the rise of the right, the far right, the extreme right. I have no problem with people who are right wing, but it's the far right and it's the far left that I kind of have issues with. Just real quick, I did get an anonymous tip, and thank you very much for whoever donated. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, but it's this idea that at any point in time, any country's democracy can topple. That's what's scary. And Myanmar is showing how it can happen in the 21st century. Now, you look at the likes of Egypt and Syria and places like that, but they never had really a democracy. Whereas even a pseudo democracy was still a democracy, you know?
yeah. Well, back to, I think the first thing I said, it doesn't look to me, it does not appear to me that Myanmar has ever had a democracy that could function over any length of time. Somebody in that kind of mix is going to get greedy at some point, and simply say, I tell you what, I'll take all the cards.
Yeah. But that wasn't really happening. That's the problem. I'm just looking back on the last 20 years. That wasn't really happening with the National League for Democracy. Because if you look at Suu Kyi, yes, she is more popular than ever, but she stepped aside 3 very, very leading roles. Although she's the leader of the party, she's not the leader of the cabinet. She's not the president. She can't be the president because of her children being foreign nationals. She's not. She's actually right now, or in the last, just before the coup, she was Minister for Foreign Affairs. She wasn't actually a leading post in the government. So a lot of it seems to be in a broad-based political organization that want democracy to continue. But again, it's democracy at what cost? And how far is too far before you actually stand up to the military? Because unfortunately, by not, this is what's happened. They've I don't know, they've gotten their confidence back from the absolute annihilation that was 2011 to 2013. They've gotten their confidence back, and that's where this coup has come from. When the government did not reprimand them for use of force against the Rohingya, they got their confidence and said, okay, well, if they're not going to stop us here, then they just shouldn't be in power. We'll give democracy one last chance and see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll create a state of emergency and we'll just delay it and delay it and delay it. And that's what happened in the first couple of years, until 1963, when Ne Win took power.
Yeah, it's a really strange situation all the way around.
There's there's a debate going on in the chat about the capital. Lads, let's leave the capital aside. And let's get back to Myanmar. If anyone in the chat knows much about Myanmar, just focus on that. Okay. I mean, look, it's very easy for, and I'm guilty of it myself. When you're discussing Eastern countries, because we're Westerners, we do actually need to get a reference for analyzing Eastern countries. And the only way is to kind of analyze it through a Western eyes and see, well, what are the comparisons? Okay, so we made the comparison. Let's talk about US later. There probably will be a stream at some point about US democracy, or, well, we will be discussing other things to do with the US at a later date. But let's bring the focus in the chat back to Myanmar. Clive Wells, Crafty wants to leave the capital aside, sidelining democracy. Well, thankfully, Clive, my channel is not a democracy. It is definitely mine. So, back off.
Hey, listen. A benevolent dictatorship has always been the best form of government, bar none.
I don't know about benevolent, but no, I'm not going to say that.
Don't even. Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. But just let's bring things back to the topic at hand, guys. Unless you want to slag off my accent, then that's fine, because Clive just seems to really, really enjoy doing that. But yeah, hashtag crafty for world leader. No, thank you. No, thank you. Blue, if you were given the reins to the world, would you take it?
Hell no. Absolutely not.
And that is
No
why
way.
you're on this stream.
No way. I have a hard enough time taking care of my own stuff without worrying about somebody else's.
So yeah, John, here's another talking point that I kind of brushed over in my little video. My homework ate my dog. Wow. Okay, John. Did you know Myanmar used to be called Burma? So let's just talk about the renaming of Burma. So the renaming of Burma happened in around 1989, 1990. Burma and Myanmar mean the same thing. It actually means the two words mean pretty much the same thing. But because of the social history and the social context of the quote unquote dictatorship that had been leading from the 1960s, or from the 1950s, really, right through to the 1980s. And because of the attachment that in international law that it got from the student protests that saw 3,000 people lose their lives. 3,000 people were killed in the student protests in Burma during the 1980s, between 1983 and 1988. So what they decided to do, instead of actually owning that and accepting that as part of their history, they thought, we'll just change the name. They did the same thing with the capital, and we'll change the name and take away the history and the stigma in the international community. And they had, in the run-ups to the 1990 elections, because they were, giving democracy a try. And then when they didn't win, they were like, nope, not accepting that. No, we're going to stick with Myanmar, but, we're not handing over the reins of power. Actually, we're going to imprison every single person that you guys voted for. We're going to jail them in their houses. So in a way, it was trying to strip Burmese people of their history, of their own history.
Good grief, I step away from the side chat for like 5 minutes, and wow, what is going on?
Explosions!
Nope, didn't miss anything. Nope.
Aww.
Nope, didn't miss anything.
You miss some good people talking shite, but that's in every chat.
I mean, I'm here for the shit talking, but yeah.
But yeah, I was
No,
just
we're
discussing.
we're
We were
having
just
quite a
discussing
lively,
the.
quite a
Yeah.
lively debate over the virtues of line dancing. Cliving myself.
Oh, okay.
Did line dancing
Yeah.
Myanmar?
You know what? If you like to line dance, live your best life.
Absolutely. I'm saying
Not
nothing on
something
the
I
line dancing
enjoy,
thing.
but you know what? If that makes you happy, just go be happy.
Yeah, so we
Well,
were talking there about Burma changing the military changing the name of Burma to Myanmar and the reasons behind it, trying to strip away the stigma of what 30, 40 years of brutal oppression and the 3,000 people who were killed in the student protest and kind of ripping that history away.
Oh man. So yeah, we'll just rebrand. Everyone will totally forget all the other stuff. It's fine.
Yeah, the same thing happened in Rwanda. The same thing happened after the genocide. They renamed it as if to say, we didn't do that. It was the old us, of 5 minutes ago. You see a few people doing that, a few countries doing that, and as well when they get into debt, we'll just bankrupt the country and change the name, and everyone will forget that we bankrupted the country.
Exactly. See, that wasn't our company. That was the other company that just happens to have the exact same employees and building and office number and all that.
Yeah,
and logo.
but on a bigger, national
but
scale.
a country.
Ooh. Tusk says, I was witness to the coup in Sierra Leone in 1992. It was relatively peaceful, but what came afterwards was one of the most brutal and bloodiest conflicts I've ever seen. Yeah, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When it comes to coups, the initial coup might be very, very peaceful. Few arrests here, a few arrests there, and that's it. Wave a gun in someone's face, and that's it. But what happens with repression is that, people tend to stand against it. And what happens when an authoritarian presence meets an unwilling public, clashes are going to happen. And people are going to lose their lives. I remember towards the end of V for Vendetta, they're talking about, what happens if people actually come out on the streets? And there's an interesting line where he says, what usually happens when people without guns stand up to people with guns?
Yeah, but see, the guys with the guns are the good guys this time. You see,
they're in the correct uniforms.
Exactly. But see, we're using the appropriate amount of force this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking at it, looking at the coup from the outside, what's remarkable is just how like Egypt it is. When Egypt initially in 2011, when they initially had their revolt, and in the run up to, because what happened with Egypt is quite interesting. People were homeless and they went to Tahrir Square to protest the homelessness crisis in their tents. They were beaten off the square. Next week, they came back. They were beaten off the square again. The week after, it got international attention for being beaten off, and there was only about between 2,000 and 4,000 people. And as soon as the news hit, because obviously it was being suppressed, as soon as the news actually hit families that this is what was happening, they came out in droves. So all of a sudden, 2,000 became 20,000. And that's when the real protests began, because you've seen 20,000 people being attacked by the military. And so the next week, it was 50,000, or 2 weeks later, it was 50,000. And in the space of a month, you saw these amazing creative protests that were non-violent, that were just about making noise, the pots and pans. And this is what we're seeing now in the evolution of protest that you're seeing in Myanmar. Went from, we'll come out in the streets and just say that we're not happy. And then we'll yell that we're not happy. And then we'll bring pots and pans and make as much noise as possible. And then the colors come out, you know, the artists come out, and it's remarkable to see. And now what they've done is, I think at the moment, in the last week or in the last week, definitely in the last week, they've spread the protests into the workplaces. So the majority of public sector workers are now on strike for, I think, 6 hours a day. They're out on strike. And they're talking about a national strike to actually shut the country down. I think that'll be a turning point. Yes, John Rapp, I did just say that. What happened? No, the coup in Sierra Leone was a military coup, but it was recognized by the UN because the previous government wasn't legitimate and the country was about to fail. Look, I really don't care. Like, this is the discussion that's been happening in the last little while. Even if you don't, it depends on what you view as legitimate government. If the government has been elected by the people, then you have to really take into account that has been elected by the government. So legitimacy is a question of loyalty, because you see China and you see Russia backing the military. They blocked a UN resolution to declare sanctions on the military in Burma. And to be honest with you, I'm against sanctions. I'm going to be very honest, because the only people who are going to hurt from the sanctions are the Burmese people. My guests have disappeared. Christian Gunelius, maybe Myanmar just changed status from in a democracy to it's complicated. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh man. So if that's the case, then I'm unfriending straight away, because no, can't be going with that.
A national strike in a government controlled by the military. That will be interesting. A lot of bloodshed, to be sure. Well, here's the thing, Gary. You can't really, if the strike is in the workplaces, you can't, and it's only taking place for a certain amount of hours a day. It would be very foolish, in my view, very foolish for the military to actually attack the people themselves. What they're doing is they're trying to create a situation like what we see in most countries when there's protests. They're trying to create the illusion that the protesters are the ones that are going to be violent. And it's interesting to see what happened in the last 2 weeks with people know that I'm not the biggest fan of organized religion in any way, shape, or form. But there is a picture that I did show in the VT, the video, of a nun. This nun was 35 years old. She wasn't old by any stretch of the imagination. She was basically near enough my age. And she got in between the protesters and the police. And what she did in an incredible act of bravery, like resembling Tiananmen Square in China, and that was Burma's Tiananmen Square moment, where a nun walked out into the middle of the road, seen protesters being beaten half to death, reporters being attacked for videoing it. She got in the middle, she got down on her knees, and she prayed. I'm not a fan, as I said, of religion or religious orders. But wow, that is bravery beyond measure. That is bravery beyond measure. And you might not like it, or you might not like her belief system. But when they're shooting rubber bullets and they have water cannons, to walk into the middle of the street and to get in the middle of that and create a buffer zone is huge. And she deserves every ounce of respect that she can get. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Little tangent.
Absolutely, no. We like little tangents. They're good. They're good every once in a while.
Yeah. Sorry. When people are oppressed by a government, their only choice is revolution or continued oppression. Oppression is not losing an election in your country. Not just for the US. Yes. Oppression comes in many forms. Absolutely. But state oppression, when it's at an institutional level, to the extent that you can barely breathe, you have two choices. You either accept it, or you fight against it. Now, whether or not you call that a revolution, I think people refer to too many things as revolutions. The last 10 years has been a stepping stone, a very small stepping stone in terms of democracy. Blue, you're absolutely right. It was not a real democracy, but it was the closest thing to becoming a democracy. Because in 2013, when they had those elections, that was a free and fair election. 73%, between 73 and 76% voted for the National League for Democracy. Yes, that's a huge amount, but when it's your first, when your two opposing sides are people claiming to be for democracy or people claiming military rule is the way to go, you don't really have much of a choice there. You know, people are trying to present the democracy as being all about individuals. It's not about individuals. It is about a desperate need for better living conditions. And these are the people who were most inclined to give either status quo or better living conditions. And the fact of the matter is, most Burmese, not all, as I've said, but most Burmese actually did see an easing of restrictions. They saw better working conditions, the right to join a union, and no, hashtag overthrow crafty, you're never going to do it. Not on this channel anyway. Weirdos. I love you guys. Again, a bit of a tangent, but when your choice is further repression or not further repression, how do you have any choice but to fight for less oppression?
Well, that's a fact.
Sorry.
I mean, that's absolutely true. When the system works right, and I'm not saying our system works right, it certainly has its problems, but you know, we have an organized nationwide protest once every 4 years. We call it an election.
Exactly. And
And
it's
if you don't like, and if you don't like the way things went the last 4 years, vote for somebody else.
but it's not just 4 years. It's not just 4 years. 4 years is just to elect the figurehead. You have more elections. You have the governor's elections. You have local elections. You have a whole myriad of votes that you can actually change your living conditions based on who's running.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. We
So,
vote for the
Peter,
House of Representatives every 2 years.
every 2 years.
Yeah.
See, our elections are every 5, and so you have the local elections every 5 years, and then 2 years later, 2.5 years later, you have the general elections, but there are every 5 years as well. So there is the crossover. There's a bit of space.
Yeah, it's kind of wild the way it
Hashtag-
works.
Hashtag term limits.
Yes.
You know,
God,
you're
who was it
singing my
yesterday that,
tune, Miss Andy.
yeah, somebody yesterday, I think one of the lawmakers, like 84, who was like, "Yeah, I'm totally gonna run again in a couple years." I'm like, dude, stop. Just
It was
stop.
never it was not supposed to be a damn profession.
Right.
That was not the idea.
Exactly.
It should never have been. And that's the thing. We don't have term limits. We do not have term limits. We have people that have been in our parliament for the last 30, 40 years.
Bro, so much changes in even 10.
And
there's people that have
even
been here for 50 years. I'm like, dude, give it up. This
But
is not,
even with
this is
that,
not what it's for.
even with that, it's not our democracy. And this is why I have an issue with calling our democracies, hashtag, or inverted commas, fucking democracies, because there's people behind the scenes that are unelected, and that have been in those roles for decades. In our country, in my country, we have a system in the local councils where we have what's known as the county or city manager, depending on whether it's a city council or a county council. And that manager can overturn every decision that is made by the elected representatives. They are unelected, they are unaccountable, and they are unfireable.
Great. That's real great. Yay, democracy.
And this is why I want to have these discussions, because a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of people think that just the general election is out there and it's big and it's scary and it doesn't impact our own personal lives. No, politics in general is more than just voting. It is everything from your community councils and community projects right up to the head offices, right up to those presidential offices.
And that's really frustrating when you have a system that allows you to elect people, but then those people don't have a limit on how long they can do the job. So you have, it's just the story, you've heard it over and over. Someone gets elected and they're like great at first. And then after a while, they kind of just shift into keeping their job mode. And it's not focused on doing the job. You're just trying to keep the job. And that is so frustrating because you're trying to get things done. You're trying to write or pass legislation. You're trying to, do something as small as fixing a pothole, and then people are just kind of trying to protect their position. It's like, look, we just elected you to do a job. Can you just do the job and then get out of the way, please?
Well, I have a contention here from Clive Wells. He says, if the people want to elect an experienced politician, why should they be denied that choice by the rules imposed by others? Like term limits.
Well, the thing is, by itself, experience does not mean jack. It's how much did you actually get done that you said you were going to get done? Because there's a lot of people that have been doing politics for, any stripe for many, many years, but they're just a seat warmer. And it's like you don't really know who they are, but they've been there forever. They don't have like any kind of significant contribution to anything. It's not just your experience, it's your ability to get things done. And, they talk about building relationships and forming partnerships and things like that, which is fine. That's kind of what you have to do. But it's gotten to the point where you're seeing people who have been doing it for 40 years, 50 years, and nothing is changing. That's not why we're supposed to have the system,
And I mean, that's the thing with Burma, or with Myanmar. They had a system in place where you had Ne Win from the 1960s. I think it was 1963 that he actually took power. Or was it earlier? It might have been earlier. But you had Ne Win, and he went from being the benevolent, quote unquote, he wasn't benevolent, he was fucking evil. There's an excellent book, and I always recommend it to anyone that wants to understand these kinds of countries. South America is a great example of how democracies can be destroyed and replaced by autocracies. And it's called the shock doctrine. The shock doctrine from Naomi Klein. And what she does, she goes through the different examples and how when you're changing from a political, and this is what people have been saying, when you're changing political ideologies, as in from a democracy to a dictatorship, there has to be a shock and awe treatment in order to change not just the makeup of the country, but also the economic system that will go alongside that particular brand of leadership. So one of the things is you need brutal repression in order to create a system where you have a structure put in place that can last. Then you do need to have a period where it's nothing but absolute repression, because people need to accept the situation. And the situation is that they don't have any control, and they never will. That's what you want to create in people when you're moving to a dictatorship. So looking at Myanmar, what was happening was they had just won freedom in 1948, and there was about 5 or 6 years where it was splits. These little militia groups here, there, and everywhere, just killing each other. And the only group that were really organized enough, or so they felt, to unite the country was this military dictatorship. But it wasn't formally established until the 60s, when most other countries were actually getting more freedoms, And what came after it was absolute brutal oppression. So yes, the initial coup might have been peaceful, but what came after was, you need to accept that we're in charge and you have no say. And that came at a price. And the price was people's lives and happiness. Yeah, there's some disagreements in the chat. Lads, look, you can disagree in the chat. This is why I wanted to have these discussions. You can disagree completely. The respect needs to stay. You don't have to agree to be civil, okay? But yeah, I would view myself as more kind of center left. But I have friends who would identify as right. I have friends who identify as left. I have friends who identify as far left. But we do still need to respect each other. And I think that's part of the problem with today's society. We don't have the ability to debate and discuss and disagree without it being heightened to this degree of animosity. So chill people.
That was good, man. They sorted out well and amicably.
Cool. The first way to remove people's way of protesting these days is to remove the internet or control the internet and enhance form of propaganda. Here's the thing, Gary. That is true to an extent, but there are alternative platforms that won't allow governments that complete control anymore. Way back in the day, back when Tunisia had its uprising, and that was in 2011, that was before Egypt. When Tunisia had its uprising, it was all done by Twitter. And I can't remember what else, but it was mainly done by Twitter. It wasn't done by anything else. And WhatsApp as well,
Yeah,
I think they
WhatsApp.
used.
Yep, I vaguely remember that being used.
But
Yeah,
yes, communication is key. What were they using in the London riots?
You guys, like, people, it's cool if you have WhatsApp, but if you really want to be able to communicate effectively without it being monitored, tracked, or censored or whatever, you need to use Signal. Just saying, all you grassroots folks out there.
In Ukraine, they use Telegram. Yeah, so there's always going to be these, especially with internet and phone, well, technology in general. My brain has just gone mush. But technology in general, you're always going to find different ways of actually communicating. And I remember for one of the protests that I was part of, and this is back before everyone, well, it wasn't back before everyone had a mobile. I didn't have a mobile at the time. But in and around that time, we were communicating through word of mouth. You would say something in the local post office and it would spread, or the local shop. You would say, this time, this place, be there. But the only problem with that was you need people who are reliable, who aren't going to rat you out. When you're organizing something or when you're being part of something, you need to be able to trust. And part of the issue for the Western society is they've kind of got it down to a T of how to have police mixed in with the crowds. Myanmar hasn't gotten there yet, thankfully. I am so confused as to what's happening in my chat right now. Okay, anyway. Hello, Steam and Cup of Reason. Reason is in the chat. And just to remind people that on Sunday morning, 11:30, here on this channel. Is it this channel? I can't remember whose channel we're on this week, Reason. I think it's yours, actually. I think it's Reason's channel. Over on Reason's channel at 11:30 UTC, we're going to have Life on the Flip Side. So yay!
Don't take any chances, folks. Sub to both.
Yes. And keep an eye, because, problem is YouTuber shit. Love YouTube, but YouTuber shit when it comes to giving off information about streams. Christian, what do you mean you've opened the can of worms and you cannot recan it? What worms have I opened? I'm scared now. Kind of scared.
I don't think you want to know. Mainly because I don't, so.
There was another, sorry. Being from Ireland, I'm sure you know how to hide your communication. Yeah. Something that's hardwired into every Irish person, how to be a hill person. I don't know. No. No, I'm not good. I'm not good at communication in general. Got it down to a tree. Clive.
Tremendous.
But okay, so we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. I did
I
want to
wanted
just
to be more active in this discussion, but as per usual, anytime my office is dead quiet all day, the moment I need to be on a call or a stream or anything, it is a nonstop stream of people.
Oh, of course. But we're going to close it out in the next 10, 15 minutes. But I do want to ask each of you. Vishanti, you go first since you're probably free now. How do you think that this is going to plan out? Now, the military have said that this is only for a year. How do you feel that this is? Yeah, how do you think it's going to pan out?
Sure, it is. It's only for a year.
So you don't believe them then?
Sorry.
This is Vishanti's maniacal laugh.
Oh my god, I can't. Oh, it's only for a year. Woo. Woo, that's good. Woo.
Well, do you think there is a way back for the National League for Democracy? Do you think there's any saving grace to get them for them to become back into power?
Honestly, at this point, I don't expect anything except for continued military control, whether it's them putting a president in power for, quote, only a year, or if it's them trying to run stuff behind the scenes or undermine elections. I mean, they just up and said, nah, this election's not legitimate. Just out of nowhere, they're like, nah, we don't like it.
So we're going to imprison everyone in charge. That's literally what they did.
So,
and I love the video. I love the video. There is the video of the woman that was in the video, the VT, and she was doing her workout for a Zoom class, and she caught the beginning of the coup. She actually caught the beginning of the coup. Those black cars that were going in to the cordon off area, that was the beginning of the coup. And she accidentally videoed it while doing her Zoom workout for her clients. How random is that?
Hey man, sometimes it happens like that. It's wild.
It's insane. It's insane. Yeah. And she's world famous now.
I literally have absolutely no faith that the military is just gonna be like, all right, the year's over, we're cool now.
Yeah. It would be remarkable if they did. Blue, what's your thoughts? Do you think there's a way back for Myanmar to enjoy democracy again?
Well, I severely doubt it without some serious bloodshed. And that's my thoughts. I mean, it's just it's unthinkable to me that a military group that has just assumed the power is going to turn around and say, "Well, that's
sorry
good.
about that.
Yeah, you guys can have it back now." Who does that? Nobody does that. That's just not. That's nobody's gonna. That's impossible in my mind. And force would, in my mind, seem to be the.
Well, what do you think about international sanctions? You're fine. International sanctions. Do you think they would actually help the Burmese people?
I don't know. The sanctions generally generally don't hurt the people that are in charge nearly as much as they hurt the people that are already being hurt.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's why I would have very, but the big difference is I suppose for the viewpoint of the international community is standing with the quote unquote legitimate government. But is that good enough to justify even the further repression that will be instituted upon the Burmese people?
Yeah, so that's a question. You know a lot more about this than I do. What is it that Burma? Sorry, I keep calling it Burma, but to me, that's what it'll always be.
Yeah.
What is it that those guys export?
They don't have an awful lot of exports.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
they
Don't have they don't have as many sweatshops. That would be Bangladesh. But
did it not used to be rubber?
It was rubber
plantations and all that.
It was at one stage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's still rubber though.
Yeah, that's what makes it so problematic to try to do anything in the way of economic sanctions.
My only concern is normally with military dictatorships, when they start to see that they're losing power or losing popularity, they go back to what they do best. And being military dictatorships, there's a kind of clue in the name, in the first bit of that. And the only real difference is, what way do they point their guns? Do they point them in towards the civilians or out towards our supposedly weaker neighbour?
Well, I'd say in towards the people, because the government, the military have very close connections to China, and China is going to block any UN resolutions to hold them accountable. And so anything that they need, with China now getting rid of the seclusionist, isolationist politics of Mao, they're now breaching out, and they're kind of spawning all over the world. So, like, for instance, just one instance, when the virus hit, China gave a load of protection gear to Myanmar. They've also said they will give vaccines to Myanmar, where a lot of those developing nations can't get vaccines. China is saying that they will give the vaccine to Myanmar. So there are very close ties to both the democratically elected government and to the military in China. So it's anyone's guess. I don't see them becoming imperialistic. They've never really been an imperialist state. And with China right next door, they can't really be an imperial. And India on the other side, they can't really be imperialist. So I don't see them turning their guns outwards. So the only place for them to turn their guns is inwards.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going at. Is have a look round about. Who have they got round about? They're not going to start picking fights with anyone else, really. So unfortunately, it looks as though at this point, it's going to be pointed inwards.
Just to lighten the mood here, there are 7% Karens in Myanmar, just one name of many ethnic groups. Yeah, but the Karens are not recognized as a protected status. just to make that clear, not even in Myanmar are Karens protected. Sorry, I just had to say it.
Oh, that's good.
Ironic,
So
they're easy to spot in security camera footage because they refuse to wear a mask.
Yep.
that's it. John Rapp asks, is Myanmar influenced significantly by a religion? They are predominantly Buddhist.
Buddhists.
This is part of the problem with the Rohingya, and this is why I won't just say Rohingya Muslims, because the Rohingya are also Hindi, one of the most ancient religions in the world. So a huge group of the Rohingya that were slaughtered in their thousands were actually Hindu. There are many different religions, but the ruling religion is Buddhism. And you would think for a state ruled by Buddhism, they wouldn't really be all aggro. But
The thing is, man, people's religion has fuck all to do with the way they behave, no matter what they tell you. So you got a country that has a majority of people who practice Buddhism, but a military dictatorship. You also have countries out there who are majority this religion, yet they're oppressing a group in their country. You have people of a different religion who are, going off murdering another group. So your religion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, you're oppressing your own citizens and people who live within your borders. Cool, you have a religion. Good for you. So does everyone else.
Remind me again, what religion do the Shaolin monks follow? Oh, that's right. The Shaolin monks in China. You know, the warrior monks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They're Buddhist, aren't they?
They are Buddhist. They are Buddhist.
So the fact that religion does have an influence doesn't necessarily follow that it's peaceful.
Yeah, I do want to come in on Gary's point here. It's bad, but China's oppression of Muslims is just as bad, and Muslims' oppression of other Muslims is even worse still. I mean, that's not really the point, but that's one of the reasons why China and the military are actually getting along so well, is because of their oppression of not Muslims as such, but China is coming down really hard on the Muslims, especially the Uyghur Muslims. But it's the oppression of minority
they're
groups.
Oppressing people, but this is not the oppression Olympics. If we're focusing on Myanmar, we're going to focus on Myanmar, dude. It's like, yes, we know that there's oppression going on other places, but today's topic is Myanmar.
But the idea of Muslims oppressing other Muslims, that's exactly what Vishanti was saying. Your religion doesn't come into how you treat people. You use it as an excuse as to why you should be allowed, in which case, in my view, and this is why I'm not religious, all religions are the fucking same, because it is all about the control. Let's not talk about Tibet here. That's for another discussion. But yeah, Titan is right. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say your last thing. I think we can generally say that oppression is bad.
One of the best names in YouTube, that man. One of the best names in YouTube.
So, yeah, I'm going to leave it here. The main reason why I wanted to have this show is to bring these discussions somewhere, because I want to have them. So before we go, Vishanti, is there anything you want to promote, or where can people find you? And we will post the link, your link and Blue's link, into the description after the stream.
Well, the next thing I have coming up for sure is tomorrow night on NASA Bunker 33. We're going to be talking about sovereign citizens. So if for some reason you're not completely sick to death of them from Radical and Team Skeptic and all the other people that do sovereign citizens, come on by. We'll be talking about them and roasting them thoroughly for your entertainment.
Great. And I'm just sorry, I'm getting the link there. Blue, is there anything that you are doing? And I'll be able to show your link. Is there anything coming up for your channel?
Yeah, I'll be putting out a video here in the next day or two, summarizing all the test results from the Cavendish experiment to date. And maybe I'll have that out tomorrow, probably Sunday, though. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and I'm just getting your link. How's the... Yeah, how's the experiment going?
It ends up that I was able to get closer than I ever thought I would to the accepted value of the gravitational constant. Within about 0.7%, a little better than Cavendish did, actually. But it's only fair. I get to do it in a garage. He just had a shed, so there you go.
That is true. You had a big garage. A ridiculously big garage, I might add. Nearly as big as my house.
Oh goodness.
Yes, Neil Badger, your timing is absolutely spot on. Just in time to say goodbye. Yeah, just real quick, the video that I showed at the beginning of the stream, that is going to be in it will be a standalone video, so you can watch it back without having to watch the stream, because I know some people don't like watching streams back, which is completely understandable. Yes, all hail Queen Crafty. Or she'll make you regret it. Nah, I'm not that bad-ish. Kind of, I think. Yeah, so that will be a standalone video. I think tomorrow I'll put it up. And it will run smoother next month. Next month, by the way, we have Mr. Clapperjack, and I'm really, really excited. Mr. Clapperjack lives in Belarus, and we are going to be discussing what happened in the last elections and since, and a little bit of the history of Belarus in the next Ion Society, which is going to be the first Friday of April, which actually coincides with my 1-year anniversary on YouTube. But I will be having an anniversary stream. What else do I have coming up? Sunday, we have... God. Sorry?
If you don't ask him about John Wick being from Belarus, I will be very upset.
Well, I mean, you can ask him yourself. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So every month we will be doing these streams. I will be joined by a panel of 2 or 3 people, depending on who's available. And of course, I will try my best to actually have someone who knows about politics and about the subject itself. Sunday, as I said, 11:30 UTC, over on Steam and Couple Reasons channel, we will be having Ion Society, and then, Clive, only then can you spot the goat. We have a contest on there called Spot the Goat for the last half an hour, and if you actually spot the goat first, and you're the first one to put it in the chat, then you get to come on the stream next week. So that's going to be fun. What else have I got? Next week, I think. Yes, next week, the 20th, which is the Saturday, I have a birthday stream. It is my birthday during the week. I am not telling you when, because you don't need to know. I will be back with I might have 2 streams that day, but I will be back with Millie and Jonesy. We will be playing games. We will be having fun. And yeah, then it'll broaden out into just a random hangout for all to come along and have fun if you want. So please do come along next Saturday. The time is to be confirmed. And Tusk, yes, will buy another cake. One big enough for Tatty this time. Tusk bought a cake the other day, thinking the 10th was my birthday, and then he ate it and never gave us any, which I'm not happy with. I want cake. Vishanti, you found the goat.
I always want cake, and yes, I found it.
So yeah. Also, probably next Friday or the Friday after. So what I'm hoping to do in the next little while is every second Friday I'm going to go live. One is going to be Ion Society, and the other is going to be Keela Talks. And it's just going to be a random chat about anything I want to fucking talk about. Like pretty much everything I do. So stay tuned. Make sure that you click the bell, because if you don't click the bell, you're not going to know. Well, you're not going to know anyway because YouTube are assholes. But they are good at giving people notification when they click the bell. So click the bell, people. And with that, I think it's time for us to leave. So thank you all for coming out. I will see hopefully most of you, if not all of you, on Steam and Couple Reasons channel on Sunday morning. If not, I will see you next week when I have my birthday stream, and you better be here, fuckers, because I need people. Yeah. Thank you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Tatty, take us out.
Boom.